Finally, we're making this happening, man.
I know it's been a long time coming, but we're here doing it.
Yes. And why not start the conversation of you winning the WNBF championship? Like, tell us what happened now. Like, how did you achieve that?
Oh, I see. So WNBF is a natural bodybuilding organization. I think it's pretty renowned here in USA and also pretty big in Asian countries that are coming up. And also it's been blowing up a little bit in the Europe. So I started bodybuilding in the WNBF organization about 2 years after COVID, because that's when I started taking bodybuilding seriously. And if you have more than 10 or 12 competitors in your class, you could get your pro card at your first show. So I was able to get my pro card at Arizona Phoenix show. And then I took a year off because I knew I had some more improvements to make in my physique. And after taking a year off with the off season to grow really, and I got another win in a pro division in a WNBF, and then I got qualified to compete at WNBF Worlds. And it was a surreal feeling because, you know, bodybuilding, if you haven't done it, it's really hard to understand what it's really like, you know. Like, you got to go through your own working out, obviously, but your time that you put in as a cardio and also meal prepping and also not eating any carbs for the last couple of weeks to really get your body fat down. So it was a really brutal time for me. Like, it was me versus me, where I had to cut out my friends, you know, social time. Because, you know, when you go out with your friends, you want to drink, you want to have fun, you want to eat all the delicious food. So I had to kind of isolate myself from that. But winning that show after prepping for about 22 weeks, man, it was crazy because I never thought I was going to win, you know. If I get like top 2, top 3, I would have been happy with it because it's my first world competition.
Yeah, man.
But when it came to, you know, when they announced my name and my number, man, it was a surreal feeling, you know. Grateful, proud of myself, and just motivated to do even better for my next coming shows.
Yeah, like, I'm really interested in, like, what was your mindset? So were you aiming for the championship at the first place, or you were just kind of like, I'm not gonna care about the result, I'm just gonna focus on the process? What was your mindset?
You know, like, when I was prepping for the show,
Yeah,
it was more like, I'm gonna get first. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right, you know. So you know how it is with the macro tracking. I'm weighing all my food, I'm tracking all my progress, and I prep with that mentality. You know, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right. I'm gonna give it my all, so that even if I don't win and I look back, you know what, I give it my all. It is what it is. And as it got closer to the show, you get anxious, bro. You get anxious.
of course, man.
Yeah, you start worrying about, oh, how about these poses? How about these cardios? Oh, should I cut down the macros or not? But you got to believe your coach. You know, you paid him, you know, and he's been knowing you. And so he knows how your body works, how your body reacts to carbs, protein, and fats. So, you know, kind of leave that up to the coach. Of course, you're going to take your own mental notes yourself, but, you know, you get anxious with it. So as it got closer to the show, when it got to peak week, which is 1 week right before the show, it's almost like, you know what, I give it my all. It is what it is. I'm going to enjoy from now on. So when I got on the stage, you know, even though I was still competitive, you know, when you're on stage, you're bumping into each other. You want to get the better lighting. You want to give them the better angle. So you're stepping on each other's feet and all. But you're just trying to have fun when you're actually up there, because all the hard work is done. It's for you to kind of enjoy and show off what you've been building off. So that was kind of like the shift of my mentality leading up to the show.
Great. And how long was the preparation process before I got on the stage?
I think for my cutting, you know, like I said, I bulked up for like about a year.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. We get body dysmorphia. You know, when you're used to being so shredded, having your abs six-pack all the time, going into your face is all chunky. Look, you got Shalom bows on your cheeks, you know, but we got to go through that. You got to trust the process. So I bulked up for about a year, and then my cutting process was around 20 to 22 weeks, which is around, you know, I say like 5 months or so. But, you know, if you cut down too fast, you lose a lot of muscle too.
Yes.
So I kind of wanted to take my time with the cut so that I was ready for it. And about a month and a half before the world show, I actually did a warm-up show. So I know how my body reacts to, you know, loading up with the carbs and all. So I say it was around 22 weeks.
22 weeks.
Yeah.
And which part of that preparation process you think is the hardest? Is it cutting?
Bulking is hard too, just as hard, because you're forcing yourself to eat. Like not eating, I think I could get by that. Personally, cutting is a little bit easier for me. But like when you're trying to eat all the time, it's very time consuming. I got work, I got school, I got relationship to, be responsible for. I'm an older brother. I have 3 younger sisters, and it's a lot of responsibility. So when you're trying to eat all the time, it's annoying, So I think bulking for me was a little bit harder. And when you're cutting, even though you're going through it physically and mentally, but you see the results, you start getting shredded, like your muscles are popping out more. So you just get motivated by looking at yourself in the shower mirror. So I think the cutting was a little bit easier for me personally, but I know everybody's bulking and cutting process, it could be different than how it is.
Yeah. And I think, people who never competed before, I mean, they don't really understand like how extreme the preparation process can be. I mean, especially I think the hardest part is, 1 week before you step on stage, right? Where, when you cut your water and salt, right? Like, how did you do that? Like, what did you do before 1 week you step on the stage?
So 1 week before the stage is when you're basically almost letting your body rest a little bit. I cut down on the intensity just by a little bit. I'm still getting a good workout in, still doing my cardio. However, a day or two before I step on stage, I stop everything. I don't do any cardio. I don't work out. I just kind of focus on resting and getting my mind ready, posing really, and just carving up. I'm essentially just carving up to make my muscles fill out because I've been depleted for so long. Obviously, you want to give it all. And everybody's best is different. My best is different to somebody else's best, to your best. So you just got to do as best as you can. Doesn't matter the circumstances that the life may throw at you, because there's always going to be stuff going on in your life. But it's how you kind of like deal with it. You always find a way to make it work. It's not going to be perfect, but you find a way to make it work. We figure it out as we go. We learn from it, and we just improve from now on. But personally, I'm a social person.
Yeah,
I have my friends, and I love my friends. And I have my family members too, my sisters. So I like hanging out with them. I like eating dessert. I love ice cream.
And it was a lot of sacrifice, right?
A lot of personal sacrifice, I say, because nobody told me to do this. I'm doing this because I said I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
So it's a decision that I made. Of course, I was struggling sometimes, but the biggest struggle was isolation.
Yes.
Where my friends want to have a birthday party, they're having all delicious food. Sometimes I will go if they're very important people in my life, but you still go there with your pack of chicken, rice, and broccoli, so even there, you're there kind of celebrating together. When you're not drinking and eating the same food, it's really not the same.
You're right.
So I think social isolation was biggest part for me.
I get it now. How many years have you been working out? Like how many years so far?
So I've always been into sports, even before I moved from Korea. I was doing a lot of every Korean kids, we do taekwondo, so we did taekwondo, and I was a swimmer actually in Korea. And then when I came over, I didn't know any English, but soccer has the same rules as in Korea as in America. So sports was a way for me to kind of be an outlet for me to connect with my friends or classmates and kind of go on from there, so I'm not so isolated because of the language and culture barrier.
Yes.
But I started taking sports more serious when I came to America because, I'm pretty good at it. So I started doing track and football in college, and then I started doing, ended up doing track in college also. And when I realized, this field is very competitive. Like, only the top 0.01% will make a career out of this. We'll go to Olympic for this. So that's when I realized, I was like, I'm just going to hit the gym, keep a fitness on. So I started working out seriously, I'd say, in my college years. So around 18 and 19.
Yeah.
Yeah. And bodybuilding wise, it was COVID. Because remember when it was COVID, everything was locked down, gym and everything. So me and my best friend, of course, we kept our social isolation with other people. So it was just him and I. Yeah. We just built a gym out of he had 2 sets of adjustable dumbbells and a bench also, and that's all we had. So we're trying to make the best out of it. We're using bands, we're doing push-ups, we're doing pull-ups off the door. That's when I started getting serious with the bodybuilding. And right after COVID lockdown was released, I visited this gym, and they're like, yo, you look pretty good, you know, you should try competing. And everybody's been telling me, but it never hit me. I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm young, I'm gonna try this now, because if I get older, I'm not gonna have the time or the leisure to do this type of sport. You know, I want to experience it now. So I say 2019, 2020 is when I started working out very seriously. Yeah, I was a gym goer, you know, I was a gym bro, but I started training, you know, it wasn't working out. It kind of transitioned into training of a style.
And I think, you know, like if you're a bodybuilder, I think, you know, you don't just gain like improvements like physically, like you also grow mentally. So what is the biggest lesson you learned from bodybuilding?
You know, that's funny because you say that. I feel like a mental aspect, I think I improved way more than my physical aspect. You know, like when you're not eating the food, when you're controlling what you put into your body, that takes so much discipline. You know, like if you could control what you eat and how much you eat, you could pretty much control any other aspect in your
totally
life,
agree. Like for me, dieting, like eating is the hardest part, man.
That is the hardest part, you know, because we live in California, LA area. There's so many different food places for us to try out there. And we see our social media, they're putting it into our faces. Huge
amount like temptation, right?
That's what I'm saying. It's just sauce all over the food. You know, of course you get tempted. So like being able to like take yourself away from it, you know, away from the temptations. And even when you're smelling it, you know, that's what I would do.
Yes.
When I would go out with my sister or my friends and I'm eating my chicken, I'd be like, yo, let me smell that real quick. And I'll just smell it. I was like, okay, that's good enough for me. And then I'll just eat my chicken after. So mental aspect of being able to control your emotions, because when you're hungry also, you get hangry. You know, you're short-tempered and you don't want to deal with people's bullshit, you know, basically. And just being in that hangry time all the time, like you get to really know who yourself is, you know, like you get to find out, oh, this is my limit. Oh, I just reacted in an emotional way. I got to do better than that. So a lot of self-reflection. So mental aspect, not controlling being able to control what you eat was probably the biggest takeaway, because I feel like after that, I'm confident. Yeah, I've done through that before and I've done it, you know, so I'm confident in myself that I could do other challenges in my life that is coming on my way. Not just physical bodybuilding, but, you know, career, school, life, or business ventures that I want to do in the future, you know. So we'll figure it out, you know. That's the biggest takeaway that I was able to take away.
Yeah. You know, my biggest mental like gain is, bodybuilding makes myself confident, because I was an incompetent kid when I was in high school, because I have never challenged myself before. And, you know, being able to, attend a competition and do all that hard work, I feel like, oh, I'm good. Like,
that's crazy, Owen, because you're super tall and handsome. I'll be confident, almost cocky if I were you, you know?
Thank you, man.
But for me, I think it's very important that you challenge yourself to become confident, you know, like when you've done through certain challenges in your life, you're like, okay, I've done this, I could do this again, or I could do more again, you know. So I think small, step by step, you become more confident in yourself. Yeah. And, you know, when I hear people that are not confident, respectfully, I feel like, oh, he's or she or they might be type of people who are a person that is not really good at keeping promise to himself.
Yeah.
Yes. If you're able to tell yourself, hey, tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. and run before I go to work, and you wake up the next day and you keep that promise to yourself, you become confident. If you don't, if you keep doing it, you haven't done it. So you're not able to really challenge yourself and see what you're capable of, you know?
You're right.
Knowing your limit, knowing your capabilities, I think it's a very important skill to master in your life.
And I think this is why like a lot of kids are on steroids and PEDs. And like What do you think it is the biggest reason like teenagers are on PD right now?
Not gonna lie, because maybe I wasn't aware when I was younger, but now that I'm a little bit older and with the power of social media influencing teenagers and young-minded, people, I think it's gonna be I hope not, but since they're starting so young, I think they're gonna be maybe even regret in the future.
Of course, I think.
Yeah, I mean, who am I to say that you're gonna regret your decision? But like, I think every person before to start taking steroids or PEDs, I think you should be, trying to master the basics first. Like get your diet right, get your sleep right, learn how to work out properly. And learn to take it little by little and step by step. Your physique is not going to change overnight. It's going to take a long time. And now, kids these days, they kind of want everything instant. I want it now. I want it fast, which is, understandable because everything's so easily accessible through cell phone, So I think delayed gratitude, delayed gratification is a skill that or an experience that everybody kind of should go through, because if you want it fast, like that's not always how it works in life,
Right.
And at what cost? Your organs, your health in the future, or if you want to start a family, that's going to affect your body too. So I think just being able to take it step by step, not comparing to others. Because these kids, they want to get big. They think it's going to give them girls confidence, become popular. Right. However, it's, that's comparing, comparison is thief of all joy. Like you got to be able to be satisfied with the little wins that you make. Everybody's path different. So with the social media, I think it's a big reason why a lot of people a lot of teenagers hop on PEDs and steroids at such a young age and, not really think about the consequences later down in the future.
I really think social media plays a big part in this, because like it really changed how we perceive ourselves, and we constantly seeing people who is like having a really like extravagant or like desired lifestyle, and we kind of see like as okay, maybe he achieved that by doing this, that, that's why like people want it quick. And I think that is a major reason, these kids are on steroids. They want it quick. They're impatient, and also their lack of confidence. So like, what advice would you give them, like mentally?
Yeah. Obviously my number one is stay away from steroids and PEDs as long as possible. Yeah. Because I can't really say much on it because I haven't experienced consequences myself, but I see it and I hear it from older people and people who's been through all that, So I kind of want them to work on themselves, like if you're not going to be a professional bodybuilder, then why are you putting your body on all those risks? It's gonna increase all these illnesses that you might get later in the future. So I say, if you just want to get fit and build confidence, then I think working out naturally is perfectly fine, but do have a drive. I would say still be hungry, still do your best. Even when you don't feel like it, go to the gym. Of course, rest days are important, but if you've been resting a lot enough, still push yourself.
Right.
You want to push it to your limit, keep building that confidence little by little. And those little wins, if you have it every day, over a year, that's 365 wins that you have. Then you're going to feel more and more confident as you go. So I think, start with the basics, get it right, fulfill your daily duties. A lot of the teenagers, they're students or they're entrepreneurs, fulfill those duties. And health and bodybuilding and physique is just one aspect of life.
Yeah.
Like your physique, your body is not everything. You have other aspects in your life, So they should be trying to, grow their physical capabilities as much as they're trying to grow their, mental, emotional, social, or even spiritual and financial. There's so many aspects that you got to try to master. So I'd say have a balanced lifestyle where you're going all together,
Get it. And I wonder, like, just being super honest, have you ever thought at one point you want to be on steroids?
Of course, bro. Of course. I've asked all my friends who are using, peds, steroids,
Yeah.
Or other substances that are enhancements. Of course I'm tempted by it, bro.
Yeah.
Like at my gym, they look crazy, and social media, with the perfect lighting and with the editing, like you might look good, but I'm a victim to what I just talked about earlier. Comparison is thief of all joy. I'm a victim to that. Like I keep comparing. I want that lifestyle. I want that. I want the wealth. I want the car that they're driving. But at the end of the day, like, you got to know that it's going to take some time. It's brick by brick. You can't just build a whole castle. You just got to work on it daily. And not going to lie, like, I have asked, some elder people, is like, hey, do you recommend it? Like, I'm interested. I want to start doing it. Like, I'm sick and tired of looking small, because people who just started working out and just started taking steroids, their improvements are a lot crazier than what I have built over 4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
So I'm like, if they're able to achieve this in 4 or 5 months or even 3 months, like, what am I doing wasting my time? But then you're getting lost in the sauce. And is looking the biggest, is that your goal? Or like building the mental capacity with it, is that the goal? Like, of course, looking good is gonna make you feel good and be more confident, but I feel like you're going to get lost in the process. Then, like, you want to know what you're working out for. Is it just for superficial? Can be. That could be a good reason, good motivating, but putting all that health and hormone levels going up and down and your emotional health, like, I don't know if that's a worth trade-off for me to take.
Yes, it's always the trade-off.
And also my mom,
Of course.
Mama Cho, she knows that a lot of the people take steroids at my gym, so she's all like, and always remember, like, you're not putting your health and your future at a risk just because you want to look good. You can look good through your personality or through your work ethic, your characteristics. That's what it matters.
Yeah.
So just keep doing what you do, and you look good. I have body dysmorphia, like all bodybuilders.
Yes.
You want to look good, you want to look bigger, more shredded, but it's just gonna take some time. So I always remember what my mom says.
Yeah, you're right. And one time when we were training, and you talk about, like, you had anxiety issues a few years ago when you were like really young, but you overcome it. Like, what happened? Do you mind sharing that?
Of course. I don't think I overcame my anxiety. I still have anxiety, and sometimes
So do I, man.
Yeah, sometimes if I'm really stressed out, too many things going on in my life that I can't control, then I will have some episodes also. But I think you get better at managing it. You find how to deal with the symptoms. So for me, I always try to do more than what I'm capable of. I'm always pushing myself forward. So I'm always in a little bit heightened sensitivity in my head. And when things don't go my way, I get anxious. Or if there's too many uncontrollable variables, like I don't know what's going to happen in the future, I get anxious. However, as a Christian man, that's not what God wants you to do. Like all the worries, overthinking, anxiety, like, I just let that go. I just let it up to him and just do best with what I could deal with, what I could control. I'll deal with it. And the results, even if it's not what I wanted, I'll deal with it. I'll learn from it. So I think dealing with it, some of the things that I like to do is to stay away from almost all substances. In California, everybody smokes weed.
Yes.
California,
like, it's so popular here.
So popular. It's legal too. It's so readily available. Like, you could just pick up a phone and get weed in your hands in about 10 minutes. It's so readily available. And also drinking, I try to stay away from it. So staying away from the substances, and also running has been helping me out a lot. You know, like running. When you're running, it's just you on the road, you on the track. Like, you get to kind of like push yourself. That's when I have my own self-thoughts and meditation. So staying physically active and staying away from things that I know that are going to trigger my anxiety and anxiousness. Like, I will stay away from it. And not gonna lie, just meditating within myself, not just thinking about it, but speaking out loud. That helps out.
Yeah.
When I'm speaking out loud, like I'm not just thinking it, I'm talking about it and I'm hearing it, you know? So it's almost 2 times of what you're thinking.
Yeah.
So that's been helping me out a lot. And also being honest, like,
Yeah.
I was so insecure about my anxiety and my anxiousness. I didn't want to tell anybody about it, you know, like, why me? You know, why me? Like, why would I go through it? I have things going well. Like, I'm working out. I've got family. Like, why would I worry about it? But I learned that almost everyone kind of has their own anxiety attacks and episodes, like you share too. So being open about it and asking for help, such as I started having it when I was in college, you know. So going to school therapists, they're free, you know. And sometimes it's not even them talking. It's just you talking, just letting it out. Just being honest and transparent about all your struggles, and then just saying, okay, you'll be better. Something like that. Just letting it out. That helps out for me to kind of like recover from those toughest times in my life mentally.
You're right.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, anxiety issues is one part. And I think, you know, for our generation, and oftentimes I feel like I'm lost. I don't know, like, where should I head into in life? And have you ever felt lost before?
Of course. I feel like I'm still lost, you know? I have my vision, I have my plan, but always in the back of my mind is like, am I taking the right steps, you know?
Yeah.
Like for me, I went through a lot of career changes, you know? So I went through, I wanted to get into physical therapy when I first graduated from high school, and I ended up taking undergrad for it. And after that, I wanted to get into teaching, you know? So I got my credential and I taught at a high school for a couple of years. And after that, I'm like, I kind of want to go into medical field now. So right now I'm in the process of getting my MP, and feels lost, but I feel like those steps that I took, those detours and roundabouts that I took, made me a person that I am today, you know? Like, I feel like there's a reason for almost everything that happens in your life. You just got to see it in a positive way.
You're right.
You know, like, I learned a lot of lessons at the cost of a lot of money for school tuition, and a lot of time, and a lot of effort, and a lot of sacrifices. But through those, I think I learned to kind of take away all the key lessons that I learned and kind of like apply it, you know, the lessons that I learned as a PT, lessons that I learned as a teacher, the lessons that I learned as a personal trainer, online trainer, you know. I think it kind of comes all together into what I'm trying to do as I grow into my my future self. Mm-hmm. So I think it's okay to feel lost. Like, sometimes I ask people who are older, they're lost. They don't know what the hell they're doing, you know? They think they know what they're doing, but it's hard to know, like, if you're taking the right step in your path. So I think just staying faithful to your dreams and your vision and following, doing your best as you can. Yeah. I think things will work out if you just keep putting your 100% into what you're doing.
Yeah. And I do have a few advices for our audience, you know, who are, you know, experiencing anxiety issues or whatever the mental issue they have. So I think my first approach to life is, you know, accept whatever is happening at the moment. If you fight with it, then you create this negative emotion, and that negative emotion, it doesn't help with anything. It just makes you feel worse. And I think, you know, my second advice is don't judge. Let go of your judgment, because whatever is happening at the moment, you know, I really think, you know, the universe has a plan for everyone, and whatever is happening at the moment, it may be laying the foundation for what is going to happen in the future, right? And my third advice is tell yourself that this too will pass. It's a quote from a book called New Earth. Yeah. And, you know, I think oftentimes sometimes, you know, people still feel sad about what happened a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We just never let it go. But you have to let it go, right?
That's crazy. My last week's church sermon was just about that. People who are still living in the past. Yeah. You know, letting it go. You know, they're never going to be able to move on fully and still stuck in the past and be traumatized from it. You know, like, it's okay if you're traumatized, but you got to move on. You know, you got to come out as a victor, you know, not be a victim to the circumstances, because that's not fair to yourself or to those people around you.
Yeah.
So that's crazy you bring that lesson up and the advice that you did. I agree with you, all three of them.
Yeah, and I think, we only have certain amount of energy, and if you direct that energy to what already happened, which is, a past tense, I mean, how you gonna have the energy, to push yourself forward to the better future you have, right? Yeah.
Owen, man, I'm getting goosebumps just hearing it. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Owen. Like, stuff happens, but whatever, roll with it, get better, make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's okay. That's how you're gonna learn, how you're gonna improve. So if you make mistakes or you've been mistaken, who cares? Nobody cares. Work harder,
Right.
keep moving on forward. So I think those for advice, I think I could take away myself.
Yeah. Thank
Of
you.
course I've heard it before and all, but it's a good thing to remind myself every day, like, because we're emotional human being, we got emotions,
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
we have it, we can't control it, but being able to be reminded from you was a good thing for me today.
Thank you, man. And I also want to know, has your definition of success evolved over the years? What is your definition of success now, and what was it like 5 years ago? Have it changed?
I think it's still changing. It's changed before, but I think it's still changing. Maybe I'm getting old, but I thought success was, of course, growing up, I thought it was all money. I thought it was having a nice house,
Same, man.
having all these cars that you want, and that's part of success. Like, everybody's ideal success is different, and that's a beautiful thing too. Like, you got to respect their own ideation of their success, but I feel like if you're chasing those things, superficial things, I'm not saying I don't want a house and beautiful cars, okay? I do want it. But if you're chasing those superficial things, I think it's an unending race. It's an unending chase. You're chasing the rainbow. So, of course, have those ambitions, but being able to be happy with the people who are dear to you, your girlfriend or wife or your parents or your sisters and your couple of the few friends that I have. If you're truly happy with them and making memories and you're having a genuinely good time, I think that's a success. And I come from a humble beginning, like, I've been through a lot, everybody's been through struggles, but I've been through a lot, like, financially, not having a place to sleep at. So anything that I have is a blessing to me. So it's a perspective thing. So I'm always going to be, I think being grateful is part of success, and being able to be ambitious, to keep driving towards your success, I think that's a beautiful thing too. So oftentimes I used to think that, success is this, is this, but now I'm almost changing it to, like, it's the journey, like, you keep looking at one thing and keep going, you're gonna miss out on the beautiful flowers on the side of the road that you're not gonna be appreciating. So I feel like the journey is a beautiful part of it, and of course it's not always gonna be up. It's gonna be up and downs, and downs, and being able to just come back from it, I think those are just all small successes that add up to, like, whole picture that you want to create. It's my movie, it's my life. I want to make it beautiful.
You're right.
Shit happens, but I think that's success, man.
I want to know if you have any difficulties in life, any obstacles. What is your personal approach to deal with any obstacles and difficulties?
Any obstacle, difficulties?
Yes.
Man, I probably face them every day. I face them every day. I don't know what it is, but recently, like, I've been getting challenged a little bit more, where I'm more, I'm more tempted to take the lazy way out and, not deal with my problems. But I have a friend, named Nate. We call him Nate Dogg. He always says, this is his quote, quoting him, they said, who cares? We always find a way to make it work, So sometimes things don't go away, but I just got to take a step back and be like, screw it, let's get it, like, it's a hard thing to live up to and live by, who can just make a way to figure it out, to find a way to figure it out. But, it's a good mentality. Like, at first it's hard, but as you do it, you get used to that mentality. It's like, okay, I'll find out a way to do it. Like, we'll make it work, So I think just dealing with it, with that quote helps me out a lot. And coming from an immigrant family also, you know, my parents brought me here from Korea, not knowing anybody, not having a house or nothing, you know. So seeing them work through all the difficulties, you know, through language barrier, through financial barriers that they never learned, the concepts that we now more understand, you know. Just seeing them as a motivation, you know, like my mom breaks her back off just to like support for like my sisters and my family. So seeing them, like, I kind of get motivated. It's like, oh, I got to work harder. I want to retire her. So that's the motivation that I get. And eventually, you know, becomes your lifestyle.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think it gets like that.
I think you're the kind of person who is kind of, you know, really hard on yourself. I'm the same, because I think, you know, maybe it's part of the reason is the culture, because we come from like Asian families, like we always have this mentality of, you know, you need to hustle, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about this?
Oh my gosh, you know. Yeah, basically, I had a tiger mom and tiger dad, you know. Growing up, I used to go in Korea. I'm sure that's how it used to be, or it still is in Taiwan and China going on. But, you know, like after school, we'll go to after school programs like for piano, for math, for English, for swimming. Like literally, I was so busy. I was like first grade go to my school and going to after school program, come back home at like 9:30, knackered, you know. So I think it's a good push, to be honest. Personally, you know, maybe it's different for me, but I hated it when I was doing it. I cried a lot, you know. I hated what I was doing. But I'm glad that they pushed me, because now I look back, I'm thankful. I'm able to play instruments, you know. I'm able to swim. I'm able to have the drive to kind of go for it. So I'm kind of thankful that they pushed me, but obviously every child is different, but for me it worked out, you know. And there's always a pressure. There's always a pressure from the parents, but you have that pressure because they're your parents, you know. You're not gonna have that pressure much longer. Like if your parents pass away, like they're the only people who genuinely want you to do better. So I see their heart, but sometimes, you know, of course I can't take it anymore. You got to have a conversation. It's like, hey, mom, dad, this is hard. This is tough for me. Like, I need a little bit of mental break. And for our parents' generation, you know, they're similar in age. It's hard for them to understand. You know, be like, what do you mean? Suck it up. Go harder. You know, nobody cares. Just go. They don't understand that aspect. So sometimes you got to talk to them like sincerely and just hope that they understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah. So far, at this stage of life, what is your biggest motivation? Is that like financial freedom or anything?
Biggest motivation?
Yes, for you.
You know, financial freedom, definitely one of them. You know, it's going to take me some time to get there because, you know, I do have my plans. I'm trying to do my best to execute it every day.
Yeah.
Financial freedom, definitely, but that's not the end goal. You know, I think my end goal is to be able to enjoy my time. Of course, being able to be free financially means that I'm not going to be working Monday to Friday or so, but I want to get to the point so that I could see the world, you know. Like I recently started traveling a little bit, you know, to Europe, to Asia, and man, just the world is big, you know. It's so cliche, but the world is so big. I want to see everything. I want to experience everything. So just having a healthy family, you know, not worrying about paying rent to rent, and being able to support for my future family, I think I'll be very content with it, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, my goal is going to change. I'm going to keep wanting more and more and more. But for right now, that's my kind of motivation for my future, yeah.
And, you know, one of the training we had, and you told me about this. So if you had a kid, so you would want them to have a solo sport like bodybuilding and also a team sport where, you know, they can learn, you know, team working, right?
Yeah.
So can you please elaborate on that?
So that actually, my mom was the one who told me that, and actually put me into those two different type of sports. You know, there's you versus you sport, you know, such as track. Not all events are, you know, you versus you because you have your team relays, but most of the events like 100-meter dash, long jump, high jump, marathon, or or like long distance, they're all you versus you. So I think that type of sport will teach you to teach you endurance, mental endurance, and kind of like understand that as you versus you in this race. Like nobody else. You don't have any teammates. You might have coaches, but when you're on the field, it's you.
Yeah.
So I think that is very important for a child to develop. That sense, that skill for them to develop. And for team sport, when you're working with teammates, you got to know how to first of all communicate with them. It teaches you how to communicate with your teammates, and also develop some type of leadership. There's some situations where you have to take leadership for the team, but doing that, so you could also learn how to be a follower.
Yeah.
So you kind of learn how to be a leader and a follower, and how to motivate each other, and how to come back from a lower score or when you're down. I think that's an important thing to do, to experience at least when you're growing up, so that when you're in real life, those things will all come in handy.
I think, one of the lesson that I learned, is sometimes you got to be a follower, because like we all want to be special. We all want to stand out, right? However, you have to be a follower first to learn the basics. Then, stand out, because like there is a process. It takes time and effort. So I think, have this mindset is important. Like you got to be a follower first.
Yeah. Like everybody has their own opinion. They think that their way is the best way or so. But like you said, being a good leader is being able to be a good follower too. It goes both ways. Like I think it comes down to open-mindedness also.
Yeah.
Being able to being open to new opinions, new ways that come out, and kind of assess it before you reject it or accept it. So I think it's a skill and a situation that goes both ways.
Right.
Yeah. But like you said, I think following is a very important thing for you to become a great future leader, because you got to know how it's like to be a follower, for you to be able to understand your followers and be a leader.
You're right. All right. Let's shift the gear a bit and talk about the technical part of bodybuilding. And as a professional athlete, I want to know, like, for anyone who is preparing for their first competition in men's physique, what are the advices and what is the process like in general?
Yeah. So generally, when you're trying to compete, step on stage, a lot of the people, you're trying to lose weight. You got to lose body fat. So that comes with controlling your macros, what you put in your body. So basically, eating less calories, and burning off more calories, going on a calorie deficit, and trying to keep your protein at an adequate level so that you don't lose too much muscle mass when your body is losing weight, trying to target as much fat as you can. So it comes down to dialing down on your carbs, your fats, and also doing your cardio just to burn off more calories, and just basically trying to get shredded, So just controlling what you eat is probably the easiest way to get back in shape. And as a bodybuilder, you gotta be unhealthily shredded, lean. Yeah. So in order to get there, you gotta kind of do some things that are a little bit like crazy for normal people to understand, where you don't have any.
I think, for the whole preparation process, standing on the stage at that exact moment, I feel the worst, actually.
You felt the worst.
Yeah. For me, that was how I felt.
I think there are different ways of quote unquote peaking. Like when you peak, right? Peaking means peaking to your best look, to when you're exactly time on your stage. When you peak right, you're supposed to feel great.
Really?
You're supposed to feel great. You're supposed to look great, So there are different ways of peaking. Some coaches make you cut out water. Some coaches make you drink more water the night before. That was my case. I drank about 2.5 gallons the night before the show.
Yeah.
And in the morning of the show, I didn't have any water, just little sips of coffee. So there are different ways of peaking. But if you're not feeling too great and you're not carved up right, then I think there's better ways for you to personally peak, because peaking is different for everybody, So we'll figure your peaking out when it comes to your show.
Yeah, actually, I didn't know that there is a concept called peaking. Like peaking, I didn't know it.
Oh yeah, that's why it's called a peak week. Gradually you fill out a little bit more. Your skin's getting thinner. So it wraps around your body a little more. It looks better. So yeah, peaking, I think it's very important. A lot of bodybuilders, especially when it's their first show, they have no idea how their body peaks, because your body's never been through it. You don't know how it works. So having done that multiple times, you find out how your body reacts to different styles of peaking. And to be honest, I still haven't tried every different ways of peaking yet. So I'm still very interested and curious to see how my body reacts to different peaking for me to kind of look my best on it.
I see.
Yeah.
And my last question for today's conversation, and so far I have enjoyed the conversation with you, man.
My pleasure.
So my last question is, if you could give one advice, just one, to a beginner and also to a person who's going to have their first competition, what advice would you give to them?
One advice?
One advice. It can be mental, it can be physical, anything.
Okay.
Start with the beginner.
Start with the beginner.
Yeah.
I'd say if you're a beginner, I'm guessing that you don't have a lot of experience and maybe you have a coach. I hope that they have a coach who has more experience, and I hope that they have a good coach. I say follow the plan. There are days where you don't want to follow the plan, where you want to have a chicken nugget instead of chicken breast. Not the same thing. Like fried food is not the same thing. Or let's say that you want to you want to drink real soda instead of zero sugar soda. Like you got to follow the plan. Like if you're paying that coach to kind of be responsible for your bodybuilding show, then it's a partnership. They will do their best in their hands, and you will do your best with the plan that they have set out for you. So obviously stay disciplined. Keep promises to yourself. You're only doing this show because you chose to do so. If not, then you're wasting your money, time, and all the fun that you could be having. You know what I'm saying? But it's almost like a little bit of a delayed gratitude, because when you step on that stage and you know that you did your best and you're looking the best as you can, it's a feeling that you cannot understand unless you've done that yourself. Yeah. And I think it's an experience that not a lot of people get to experience, but I strongly recommend that they do, because it just changed your perspective on most of your life, I'd say. I haven't been the same person ever since I stepped on stage for the first time. Like I said, I went through it so tough where I broke one time. My first show, I think I was like 5 weeks out. I don't know how, but I woke up, I opened my eyes on a drive-through line at Carl's Jr. And I had Weston bacon cheeseburger. That's my favorite burger over there. I don't know what it is. And I was like, why did I get this? So I just went home. It got to the point where I took a bite. I chewed it up and I just spat it out, because I was like, I cannot do this. This is not it. I almost broke, but at the end, I remember who I had to be. So you're gonna be maybe not that bad. That was really bad, but you're going to get struggled in ways that you have never been struggled before, challenged before. So stay disciplined. Always try to follow the plan. I think those two things are the best things I could do.
100% agree.
Very basic, but sometimes basics work.
Yeah, sure, man. And if our audience want to reach out to you, what is the best way?
You could reach out to my Instagram, Shotta John. It's SHOTTA_John, or hit up Owen. He has my phone number. I'm not gonna put my phone number out there, but yeah, hit him up for a little bit of a preliminary interview, so that if you're serious about it, you could ask me any questions. But yeah, I'm very easily reachable.
All right. Thank you so much, John.
Of course. Thank you, Owen.
Thank you.
Good shit today.
Good shit.